This isn't up for discussion. The projections are solid, but the client data shows a discrepancy.
Wait, what?
The joke lands like a dropped plate. Sharp, brittle, impossible to ignore. Evan Carter is still standing near the conference table when the laughter ripples past him. It isn't loud laughter. Cautious, polite. The kind people use when they're checking the room to see if it's safe to laugh. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. Too bright, flattening every face into something pale and unreadable. Evan's notebook is tucked under his arm, fingers pressed hard against the cardboard cover, as if it might anchor him. Across the table, Mark Reynolds leans back in his chair, smug, relaxed, the senior analyst everyone listens to. "Relax," Mark says, waving a hand. "It's just a joke. You people are always so serious. You people." The words slide into Evan's chest and lodge there. He feels heat crawl up his neck, a dull ringing in his ears. No one meets his eyes. The HR manager stares down at her tablet. A junior associate bites her lip. Someone clears their throat too late. Evan thinks of his mother's voice from years ago. "Keep your head down, do the work, don't give them a reason." He thinks of the badge clipped to his belt. The word intern printed too boldly, like a warning label. Mark chuckles again, softer this time. "Come on. Don't tell me you're going to make this a thing." Evan opens his mouth, closes it. The silence stretches, heavy, accusing. Then the glass door at the end of the room slides open. Figure steps inside, heels clicking once against the tile. And the room goes completely, terrifyingly still. The laugh doesn't disappear right away. It lingers, thin and uncertain, hovering over the conference table like smoke that refuses to clear. Evan Carter stands near the wall, shoulders squared because he has trained himself to stand that way, because slouching looks like guilt and confidence is armor whether it fits or not. "Come on," Mark Reynolds says, smiling like he's doing Evan a favor. "It was just a joke." Evan nods once, automatically. His mouth is dry. The notebook under his arm is damp where his fingers have been gripping it too tightly. He can feel his pulse in his throat, loud enough that he's certain everyone else must hear it too. Across the table, Linda from HR clears her throat. "Let's refocus," she says gently. "We're on a tight schedule." That's it, Evan thinks. That's how it ends. A joke, a laugh, a redirect. Mark spins his pen between his fingers. "I mean seriously. We're all adults here." Evan finally speaks. "It didn't feel like a joke to me." The words come out quieter than he intends. They land without force. Mark raises his eyebrows, amused. "Wow," Mark says. "Sensitive much?" Few people shift in their chairs. No one speaks. Evan looks around the room. 12 people. Analysts, managers, one VP dialing in on the screen. Faces he's memorized over the last 3 months. Faces that nod when he presents data, that email him late at night asking for revisions, that smile in the hallway. Not one of them meets his eyes. "I didn't mean anything by it," Mark continues. "You people always think everything's an attack." The word hits harder this time because it's clearer, because no one pretends they didn't hear it. Evan feels heat spread across his face. He thinks of the internship acceptance email, the way his mother cried when he told her, the way his father said, "Don't mess this up." He thinks of the student loans waiting for him like a clock. Linda shifts again. "Mark," she says, careful, "let's be mindful of language." Mark laughs. "Oh, come on. Now I'm the bad guy." "No one said that," Linda replies quickly. Evan's chest tightens. The room feels smaller. He realizes distantly that this isn't about what Mark said anymore. It's about how easy it is for everyone else to pretend it didn't matter. "I just want to do my job," Evan says. His voice shakes despite his effort. Without being what?" Mark cuts in. "Teased. Challenged. This is a high-pressure environment, Evan. If you can't handle a little humor. It wasn't humor, Evan says louder now. The silence that follows is heavier than the laughter was. Someone's phone buzzes. Someone coughs. The VP on the screen glances away. Mark's smile fades just a little. Careful, he says. You don't want to make this a bigger issue than it is. Evan hears the warning clearly. He wonders how many times it's been said before to other people in other rooms. Linda closes her tablet. Let's take a short break, she says. 5 minutes. Chairs scrape back. People stand too quickly, eager to escape. Conversations start up in low murmurs that carefully avoid Evan's side of the room. Mark pauses as he passes Evan. No hard feelings, he says quietly. You'll learn how things work around here. Evan watches him walk away. He exhales slowly, trying to steady himself. His hands are shaking now. He presses them flat against the table, grounding himself in the cool surface. The glass door slides open. Footsteps enter the room, sharp and deliberate. Evan looks up as the senior partner, Rachel Whitman, steps inside, her gaze sweeping the half-empty room, then landing on him. What did I miss? She asks. No one answers. And in that silence, Evan understands that whatever just happened isn't over. The email arrives at 9:12 a.m. Subject: Quick check-in from Linda Perez, HR. Evan reads it twice, then a third time, even though there's nothing new hiding between the lines. His stomach tightens anyway. Around him, the office hums to life. Keyboards clicking, printers whirring, the low murmur of voices performing professionalism. Everything okay? Maya whispers from the next desk. Evan forces a smile. Yeah, HR stuff. She doesn't look convinced. That was fast. It usually is, he says. The HR conference room is smaller than the one upstairs. Softer lighting. A plant in the corner that looks alive enough to be intentional. Linda is already seated, tablet in front of her, posture open in a way that feels rehearsed. Evan, she says warmly. Thanks for coming so quickly. Of course, he replies, sitting down. He folds his hands together to keep them still. Linda offers a sympathetic smile. I wanted to check in after yesterday. Make sure you're feeling supported. Evan nods slowly. I didn't feel supported in that room. Linda's smile flickers, then resets. I understand it felt uncomfortable. It wasn't just uncomfortable, Evan says. It was inappropriate. Linda taps her tablet. Mark's comment has been described as humor taken out of context. Evan lets out a short, humorless breath. He said you people. What context makes that okay? Linda tilts her head. Mark has worked here for 15 years. He's known for being informal. So that's just how he is. I wouldn't put it that way, Linda says quickly. We just don't want to jump to conclusions. Evan leans forward. I'm not jumping. I was standing right there. There's a pause. Linda clasps her hands. Our goal is to keep a collaborative environment. At whose expense? Evan asks. Linda looks at him for a long moment. Evan, this is a competitive field. Tensions run high. Sometimes people say things they don't mean. He meant it, Evan says quietly. And everyone heard it. Another pause. This one heavier. We don't want to escalate a situation unnecessarily, Linda says at last. Evan's jaw tightens. Escalate how? Formally, she says. Complaints create records. Records create consequences. Isn't that the point? Linda exhales. Consequences affect everyone, including you. There it is. The warning wrapped in concern. So what are you saying? Evan asks. I'm saying, Linda replies carefully, that we can handle this informally. Conversation. An apology. No need to label it as something bigger. Racism is already something bigger, Evan says. Linda's eyes flick to the door, then back. We prefer the term miscommunication. Evan laughs once, sharp and disbelieving. Of course you do. There's a knock. Before Evan can react, the door opens. Mark Reynolds steps inside. "Hope I'm not late," Mark says, smiling as if this is a coffee catch-up. Evan stiffens. "I didn't agree to this." Linda stands halfway. "It's just a conversation." Mark pulls out a chair. "Look, Evan, I heard you were upset. I wanted to clear the air." "You said something racist," Evan says flatly. Mark chuckles. "See, that word again. I didn't target you. I was joking. You singled me out." "You're the intern," Mark replies. "Everyone gets roasted." "Not like that," Evan says. Mark shrugs. "Intent matters." "So does impact," Evan says. "I felt humiliated." Mark sighs theatrically. "That wasn't my intention. If you took it that way, I'm sorry." Evan looks at Linda. "That's not an apology." "It's sufficient," Linda says softly. "No," Evan says. "It's not." Mark's smile hardens. "You're being difficult." "I'm being honest." Mark leans back. "You know, when I was starting out, I kept my head down. Learned the culture. That's how you survive." Evan meets his gaze. "Survive what?" Mark doesn't answer. Linda steps in. "I think we've all shared our perspectives." "No," Evan says. "I haven't been heard." Linda's tone cools. "Evan, you're here on a temporary basis. We'd hate for this to impact your evaluation." There it is again. Clearer now. Evan stands. His legs feel weak, but he stays upright. "So this is about protecting him." "This is about protecting the firm," Linda says. "Same thing," Evan replies. Mark scoffs. "You're making a mistake." Evan looks between them. "Maybe. But I won't pretend nothing happened." He walks out before either of them can respond. At his desk, Maya looks up instantly. "How'd it go?" Evan swallows. "They don't want to escalate." Maya shakes her head. "Of course not." "What should I do?" Evan asks quietly. She lowers her voice. "Document everything." Words. "Who was there?" "Will that help?" She meets his eyes. "It might cost you. But silence costs more." Evan nods slowly. He opens a new document on his laptop. The cursor blinks, waiting. He starts typing. Evan starts noticing it everywhere once he knows what to look for. It's not just Mark. It's the pauses after Evan speaks in meetings, the way his ideas are repeated by someone else and suddenly receive nods. It's the interesting comments on his emails, the extra scrutiny, the reminders about tone. "You're very articulate," a manager tells him one afternoon, smiling as if it's a compliment. "Thanks," Evan replies, though the word for hangs unspoken between them. He keeps his head down, just like Mark suggested. He documents everything just like Maya advised. Direct quotes. Who laughed? Who didn't? Who stared at their laptop like it was the most fascinating thing in the world? Late one evening, he's still at his desk when Jamal from Data Analytics passes by. "You still here?" Jamal asks. "Trying to finish this model," Evan says. Jamal nods, then hesitates. "Can I sit?" They sit in silence for a moment, the office nearly empty now, lights dimmed to energy-saving mode. "I heard about what happened," Jamal says finally. Evan doesn't look up. "Everyone did." "Yeah," Jamal says. "Same thing happened to me my first year." Evan's fingers still. "What do you mean?" Jamal exhales. "Different words. Same message. I said something about it. Guess what HR told me?" Evan looks at him. "They didn't want to escalate." Jamal laughs softly. "Exactly. What did you do?" "I stopped pushing," Jamal admits. "Needed the job." Evan nods, understanding more than he wants to. "Do you regret it?" Jamal considers. "Every day. But I also needed to eat." The honesty sits heavy between them. The next week, Evan overhears two associates whispering near the printer. "Did you hear?" one says. "He filed something." "Bold move," the other replies. "Risky." They fall silent when Evan appears. In meetings, Mark becomes smoother, more careful. No more jokes. Just a tight smile and comments that sound neutral until you listen closely. Evan, maybe stick to the numbers, Mark says during one presentation. Context can be tricky. I included context because it affects interpretation, Evan replies. Mark raises an eyebrow. Sure. Just be mindful. Afterward, a senior consultant pulls Evan aside. You're doing good work, she says quietly. But you might want to pace yourself. With what? Evan asks. She glances around. With pushing back. So I should let things slide. I'm saying this place has a long memory, she replies. And not everyone survives it. At lunch, Evan sits with Maya and two others. Priya from legal research and Daniel from operations. The conversation drifts, then circles back. It's always framed as one-off incidents, Priya says. Never a pattern. Because patterns mean responsibility, Daniel adds. Maya looks at Evan. You're not imagining this. I know, Evan says. But knowing doesn't fix it. Priya leans in. We've been comparing notes. Evan's heart picks up. Notes. Comments. Evaluations. Who gets second chances and who doesn't? Daniel pulls out his phone, scrolling. 3 complaints over 5 years. Same manager. Same language. Evan feels a chill. Why hasn't anything happened? Priya shrugs. Because individually, they're miscommunications. Together, they're a lawsuit. Silence follows. The word hangs there, dangerous and electric. I don't want to be a symbol, Evan says quietly. I just want to work. Maya reaches across the table. Sometimes they make you one anyway. That night, Evan lies awake, staring at the ceiling. He thinks of his parents again. His father's pride, his mother's worry. He thinks of the interns who will come after him, eager and hopeful and unaware. The next morning, an email circulates company-wide. Subject: Workplace Culture Reminder. Vague. Bloodless. Paragraph about respect and professionalism. No names. No acknowledgement of harm. Mark stops by Evan's desk later. See, he says. Handled. Evan looks up. Nothing was handled. Mark's voice drops. You're still here, aren't you? Evan's hands curl into fists under the desk. Is that supposed to reassure me? It's advice, Mark replies. Don't confuse noise for change. That afternoon, Evan receives his mid-cycle feedback. Strong analytical skills. Occasionally struggles with fit. He closes the document slowly. At the end of the day, Evan sits alone in the stairwell, phone pressed to his ear. I don't know how much longer I can do this, he tells Maya. You don't have to decide tonight, she says. But you shouldn't carry it alone. Evan stares at the concrete steps. What if I speak up and nothing changes? Maya pauses. Then at least the record will say you were there. Evan hangs up and opens his laptop again. He adds another entry to the document. Another example. Another name. This isn't one joke, he realizes. Never was. It's a system counting on him to stay quiet. And for the first time, Evan wonders what would happen if he didn't. Continue Chapter 4 but 900 word. Chapter 4, The Cost of Speaking. 900 words. The complaint becomes real the moment Evan clicks submit. There's no dramatic sound. No confirmation beyond a bland, automated message thanking him for his engagement. The cursor stops blinking. The document closes. His reflection stares back at him in the darkened laptop screen. Tired eyes, jaw set too tight. By noon, the atmosphere shifts. He feels it before anyone says anything. Conversations pause when he approaches. Slack replies take longer. A meeting he's been attending weekly disappears from his calendar. He checks the invite twice. Then a third time. At 2:07 p.m., an email arrives from Mark. Subject: Coverage update. Looping in Sarah on the client call going forward. Best to streamline comms. No explanation. No thanks. Evan exhales slowly and forwards the email to his personal account. When he asks Linda about the missing meeting, she smiles thinly. We're just restructuring responsibilities. I wasn't told, Evan says. These decisions move quickly, she replies. Try not to read into it. But there's more. His manager, Greg, calls him into a glass-walled office later that week. The blinds stay open. Visibility as deterrent. I want to talk about perception, Greg says, folding his hands. There's a sense you're distracted. Distracted how? Evan asks. Greg shifts. Focused on issues outside your scope. You mean the complaint? Greg winces. Let's not label it. It is labeled, Evan says. By HR. Greg leans forward. I'm just saying this is a relationship-driven business. People need to feel comfortable. Comfortable with what? Evan asks. Being disrespectful. No, Greg says quickly. With you. Evan stares at him. So I'm the problem. Greg sighs. I'm trying to help you succeed. Outside the office, Maya waits. How bad? She asks. They're freezing me out, Evan replies. Not. That's retaliation. They'll never call it that. They never do. A week later, Evan's evaluation is updated. Needs improvement in collaboration. Demonstrates defensiveness when receiving feedback. Defensive. He laughs when he reads it, a sharp sound that startles the intern across from him. At lunch, Jamal slides into the seat beside him. They moved my project too, he says quietly. Why? Evan asks. Jamal shrugs. Because I said your name in a meeting. Anger flares hot and immediate. I didn't ask you to. I know, Jamal says. But I'm tired. The word lands with weight. Tired of calculating tone. Tired of swallowing words. Tired of pretending survival isn't its own kind of damage. Mark meanwhile grows bolder again. Careful with that phrasing, he says during a review. Could be misinterpreted. Evan meets his gaze. By who? Mark smiles. By clients. By leadership. Or by you. Mark's smile tightens. You really want to push this. The warning is unmistakable. That night, Evan receives a call from his mother. You sound different, she says. Are you okay? He hesitates. Work's been hard. Hard how? He tells her everything. The joke. The silence. The complaint. The fallout. She listens quietly. Then, I'm proud of you. The words hit harder than he expects. But I'm scared, she adds. For you. So am I, Evan admits. 2 days later, HR schedules another meeting. This time it's formal. 2 representatives. Legal pad. A recorder placed carefully between them. We want to discuss next steps, Linda says, voice neutral. What steps? Evan asks. We've concluded our internal review. And there was no violation of policy. Evan feels something inside him crack. So that's it. However, Linda continues, we believe tensions have arisen that may impact team cohesion. So you're punishing me. We're recommending a reassignment, Linda says. Different team. Fresh start. Without Mark. Linda doesn't answer. Evan stands. That's not a solution. That's exile. It's an opportunity, the second rep says. For who? Evan asks. Silence. Evan leaves the room shaking. Outside, Maya waits again. They cleared him, Evan says. And moved me. Maya curses under her breath. That's how they do it. I don't know how much more I can take, Evan says. His voice breaks despite his effort. I'm tired of being calm. Maya looks at him steadily. Then don't be. That night, Evan scrolls through his notes. Names. Dates. The patterns. He opens a new tab. Employment rights, whistleblower protections. His heart pounds. He knows the cost now. He's already paying it. The question isn't whether speaking up hurts. It's whether staying silent costs him more. And this time, Evan doesn't close the tab. The call comes at 6:43 a.m. Evan almost ignores it. His phone has become a source of dread. Unknown numbers, late-night emails, calendar updates that feel like traps. But something makes him answer. "Evan Carter?" a woman asks. "Yes. This is Claire Hoffman. I'm a reporter with the Tribune. I'm calling about a consulting firm you work for." Evan sits up slowly. "How did you get my number?" "I received documents," Claire says. "Internal emails. HR correspondence. A recording." Evan's breath catches. "A recording?" "Yes," she says gently. "From a conference room." The room tilts. Evan grips the edge of the bed. "I didn't leak anything." "I didn't say you did," Claire replies. "But your name appears repeatedly. I wanted to hear from you before we publish." Publish. The word lands with terrifying weight. "I don't want to be misquoted," Evan says. "I don't want to misquote you," Claire replies. "I want the truth." Evan closes his eyes. He thinks of Mark's smile. Linda's warnings. The email about fit. "What happens if I say nothing?" he asks. Claire pauses. "Then the story runs without your voice." Evan exhales slowly. "Give me an hour." By the time he gets to the office, everyone knows. The lobby TV is muted, but the headline scrolls across the bottom of the screen anyway. Internal complaints allege racial bias at elite consulting firm. Whispers follow him to his desk. Phones buzz nonstop. Slack channels explode, then go eerily quiet. Maya appears at his side. "Did you see it?" He nods. "They have a recording." Her eyes widen. "Of Mark. From the meeting." "Jesus," she whispers. At 10:02 a.m., a company-wide email goes out. "We take these allegations seriously. An external review is underway." No apology. No acknowledgement. At 10:15, Evan is summoned to a conference room. This time it's executives. Legal counsel. The blinds are closed. "We need to discuss media inquiries," says a man Evan doesn't recognize. "I haven't spoken to anyone," Evan says. "Yet," the man replies. "But you might." Linda watches him carefully. "This situation has escalated." "You didn't want it to," Evan says. "That's not helpful," she snaps, then softens. "We're asking for cooperation." "Cooperation with what?" Evan asks. "Controlling the narrative." The legal counsel leans forward. "We'd advise discretion." "You advised silence before," Evan replies. "Look where that got us." Mark hasn't shown up yet. Evan notices that immediately. By noon, the story is everywhere. Other outlets pick it up. Former employees start posting anonymously online. Screenshots surface. Patterns become undeniable. Jamal texts him, "They're talking about my old team." Priya, legal, is panicking. At 1:30 p.m., Mark finally appears, escorted into another conference room. He doesn't look smug now. He doesn't look amused. He looks angry. Evan watches through the glass as Mark gestures wildly, voice raised though the sound doesn't carry. Maya leans in. "He's done." Evan shakes his head. "They'll protect him if they can." But by evening, the firm's CEO issues a statement, this one longer, heavier. "We failed to uphold our values. We are placing Mr. Reynolds on administrative leave pending investigation." Administrative leave. It's not justice, but it's something. Evan goes home exhausted, his phone still buzzing. Messages from classmates, from strangers, from people thanking him for speaking up, even though he hasn't, not publicly. At 9:12 p.m., Claire calls again. "We're running a follow-up," she says. "Would you go on record?" Evan sits on the edge of his bed. His hands shake. "If I do this, there's no going back." "I know," Claire says. "But people are listening now." He thinks of the interns who will come next year. Of Jamal. Of himself 3 months ago, hopeful and unguarded. "Okay," Evan says quietly. "But I tell it my way." The interview airs the next morning. Evan's voice is steady, even when his hands aren't. "I didn't want to be a headline," he says on screen. "I wanted to be respected." The reaction is immediate. Support. That. Praise. The firm's stock dips by afternoon. By nightfall, Mark's name is trending, for all the wrong reasons. Evan turns off his phone and sits in the dark. The silence he once feared is gone now, replaced by noise so loud it rattles his chest. He doesn't know what comes next. But for the first time, the silence isn't protecting them anymore. It's broken. And everyone can hear the cracks. Evan learns quickly that attention is not the same thing as protection. The morning after the interview airs, his phone vibrates non-stop on the nightstand. Notifications stack faster than he can clear them. Missed calls, emails, mentions. His name, suddenly no longer private, floats through headlines and comment sections like something detached from his body. He watches the clip again in the dim light of his apartment. His own face on screen looks calm, almost composed. He barely recognizes that version of himself. "You didn't look scared," Maya texts. He types back, "I was." At the office, security has been doubled. A new badge reader blinks red, then green. The lobby feels colder somehow, stripped of casual chatter. Conversations stop when Evan walks past, not out of hostility now but caution, like he's fragile or contagious. In the elevator, two associates whisper, "That's him. He's brave. He's trouble." Evan stares straight ahead, jaw tight. An emergency town hall is scheduled for noon. Mandatory attendance. The email emphasizes unity 3 times. The auditorium is full. Leadership sits on stage, faces solemn, rehearsed. The CEO steps forward, hands clasped. "We are listening," she says. "We acknowledge harm." Evan notices what she doesn't say. No name. No apology directed at him. A hand rises from the audience. Why did it take media exposure to act? Polite applause ripples. The CEO nods gravely. "We are committed to learning." Learning. Evan feels Maya shift beside him. "This is damage control," she whispers. On stage, the head of HR speaks next. "We encourage employees to raise concerns internally." Evan lets out a quiet laugh before he can stop himself. After the meeting, Linda approaches him near the exit. "You didn't have to go public," she says softly. "You didn't leave me another way," Evan replies. Her lips press together. "This has consequences." "For who?" he asks. Linda doesn't answer. By afternoon, Mark's administrative leave becomes official termination. The announcement is brief, carefully worded. It cites violations of professional conduct. Nothing more. Jamal messages him they fired him. Evan closes his eyes. Relief mixes with something sour. It isn't victory. It's cleanup. Claire calls again. "Former employees are reaching out," she says. "This is bigger than one man." "I know," Evan replies. "That's what scares me." That evening, Evan's parents appear on his phone screen. His mother's eyes are red. "We saw everything," she says. His father nods slowly. "You told the truth." "I didn't mean to hurt you," Evan says. His mother shakes her head. "You didn't. The lie did." The support helps. So do the messages from strangers. People who say "this happened to me too," people who thank him for saying what they couldn't. But the hate comes just as fast. Anonymous emails. Comments telling him to be grateful, to stop playing victim, to leave if he doesn't like it. One message reads, "You ruined a good man's career." Evan stares at the screen, heart pounding. That night he doesn't sleep. The next day, legal counsel requests another meeting. "We're offering you a severance package," the lawyer says. "Generous." Evan blinks. "I didn't resign. This would be a mutual separation," the lawyer replies smoothly. "A clean break. So you're firing me. We prefer not to frame it that way." Evan laughs bitterly. "You really can't help yourselves." Maya squeezes his hand under the table. "I want to stay," Evan says. "I didn't do anything wrong." The lawyer exhales. "Staying may be uncomfortable." Evan meets his gaze. "It already is." Outside, reporters wait. Cameras flash. Someone calls his name. How does it feel? A voice asks. Evan stops. For the first time, he turns toward them. It feels expensive, he says. And necessary. The clip goes viral within hours. By the end of the week, regulatory agencies announce inquiries. Sponsors pull out. The firm's board schedules emergency sessions. Change, Evan realizes, doesn't arrive cleanly. Tears through things. Leaves debris. On Friday evening, Evan sits alone at his desk. His reassignment has been cancelled. His future here is uncertain but real now. Visible, contested. Maya appears with 2 coffees. You okay? I don't know, Evan says honestly. But I'm not invisible anymore. He smiles. That counts. As the office empties, Evan looks around at the place that once felt untouchable. The system is shaking. Not collapsing yet but exposed. And Evan knows the hardest part is still coming. Because justice doesn't end with headlines. It begins after them. The hearing room smells like coffee and old paper. Evan sits at the narrow table with his attorney beside him. Hands folded, spine straight. Across the room, the firm's legal team occupies an entire row. Dark suits, identical binders, quiet confidence. A court reporter adjusts her headset. The chair of the regulatory panel clears his throat. Mr. Carter, he says. You're here voluntarily? Yes, Evan replies. The word echoes more loudly than he expects. Voluntarily. As if any of this had been a choice. The questions begin calmly. Context. Evan answers steadily. Careful not to editorialize. He sticks to facts. The joke. The silence. The emails. The reassignment framed as opportunity. He watches faces as he speaks. Some impassive, some narrowing with interest. And when you raised concerns internally? The chair asks. I was warned not to escalate, Evan says. Multiple times. The firm's counsel objects. The chair overrules. What impact did this have on your work? Another panelist asks. Evan pauses. The room waits. I stopped feeling safe, he says. Not physically. Professionally. Every word felt like a risk. There's a murmur in the gallery. During the break, Evan steps into the hallway. Maya is there leaning against the wall. You're doing great, she says. I feel like I'm on trial, Evan replies. You not. You are. Just not the one they think. Inside, the firm's representatives argue policy. Training modules. Compliance checklist. Their words sound polished, distant. Isolated incident, one lawyer says. Evan's attorney rises. If it were isolated, we wouldn't be here. Emails appear on the screen. Performance reviews. Phrases highlighted in yellow. Occasionally struggles with fit. Needs to manage tone. The panel leans in. By afternoon, it's clear the narrative is shifting. Not collapsing, systems rarely do, but bending under weight. Outside, reporters gather again. Evan avoids them this time. He needs quiet. That night, he sits on his apartment floor, back against the couch, lights off. The adrenaline drains, leaving exhaustion behind. His phone buzzes. It's Jamal. They asked me to testify, Jamal says. Evan closes his eyes. You don't have to. I know, Jamal replies. But I want to. The next weeks blur into meetings and statements. Former employees come forward. Some anonymously. Some publicly, voices shaking but determined. The pattern becomes undeniable. The firm announces reforms. Task forces. External oversight. The words are big, the timelines vague. Mark's name appears again. This time in filings. Depositions. A quiet settlement rumored but never confirmed. Evan is offered his job back. Same role. Same pay. A carefully worded apology from leadership. He reads the email 3 times. Are you going to take it? Maya asks when he shows her. I don't know, Evan says. It feels like staying inside a house after finding out the foundation's cracked. Sometimes you stay, she says. Sometimes you leave with proof. At the final hearing, the panel issues its findings. Violations, failures, mandated changes, penalties that sting but don't destroy. It's not the reckoning people online wanted. No dramatic collapse. No villains led away in cuffs. But it's real. Afterward, Evan steps outside into sunlight that feels too bright. Claire catches up to him. "Do you feel vindicated?" she asks. Evan considers the question. "I feel tired." He nods. "What's next?" "I'm not sure," he says. "But it won't be quiet." That evening, Evan meets his parents for dinner. His father studies him across the table. "You did something hard," his father says. "I lost things," Evan replies. His mother reaches for his hand. "You kept yourself." Later, alone again, Evan opens his laptop. He drafts a letter. Not angry, not triumphant. Honest. "I spoke up because silence was costing me more than speaking ever could." He saves it. He doesn't send it yet. The consequences settle slowly. Promotions delayed. Opportunities reshuffled. But also, new emails from people asking for advice. From interns. From managers who want to do better. Evan realizes justice isn't a finish line. It's maintenance. And some days it hurts. But when Evan looks back at the conference room where it started, the laugh, the silence, he knows one thing with certainty. He didn't stay quiet. And that has already changed more than they'll ever admit. The noise fades faster than Evan expects. The headlines thin out. The panels move on. Social media finds a new outrage to feed. What's left is quieter and heavier, the kind of aftermath no one live tweets. On Monday morning, Evan walks into the office for the last time. Not as a spectacle, not as a symbol. Just a man carrying a cardboard box with a mug, a framed photo of his parents at his graduation, and a notebook whose pages are dense with dates and names he hopes he'll never need again. Maya meets him at the elevator. "You sure?" Evan nods. "I'm sure." They walk together down the hallway. Few people stop to say goodbye. Some offer hugs. Others offer awkward smiles. Apologies that trail off before they become promises. "I should have said something," one manager murmurs. Evan answers honestly. "You still can. Just not for me." At his desk, he shuts down his computer and slides his badge into the box. The word intern still looks too bold. He leaves it there. Outside, the air is cold and clean. Evan breathes deeply, surprised by the relief that follows. Leaving doesn't feel like defeat. Feels like choosing his own pace after months of being pushed. The next weeks are uneven. Some days, Evan wakes up energized, drafting applications, meeting mentors, sketching a future that isn't defined by resistance. Other days, the smallest things pull him back. A joke on a podcast, a phrase in an email, the hum of fluorescent lights in a grocery store aisle. At night, the conference room returns in fragments. The laugh, the silence, the way his voice sounded when he finally used it. He starts therapy. Helps slowly. Naming what happened makes it smaller, more manageable. Not harmless. Never that, but contained. Emails keep coming. A first-year associate writes, "I used your story to push for changes on my team." An intern asks, "How did you know when to speak up?" A senior leader admits, "I thought I was neutral. I wasn't." Evan answers when he can. When he can't, he lets the messages sit. He's learned that being available is different from being responsible for everyone else's healing. One afternoon, Claire calls. "They're checking in again," she says. A year later, peace. Systemic follow-through. Evan thinks about it. "I'll comment," he says. "But I won't relive it." "That's fair," she replies. In the article, his quote is brief. Change doesn't announce itself. It shows up in who gets heard when no one's watching. His parents visit that weekend. They sit on his couch, sipping tea. "You look lighter," his father says. "I am," Evan replies. "And heavier." "Both." His mother smiles sadly. "That means you learned something real." A job offer comes in the spring. From a smaller firm, quieter, with leadership that asks questions before making promises. During the interview, Evan is clear. "I won't tolerate disrespect," he says. "From anyone." The hiring manager nods. "Good. Neither will we." Evan accepts. Not because it's perfect. 'Cause it feels honest. On his first day, he walks into a meeting room that looks almost ordinary. He takes a seat. Introduces himself. When someone interrupts him mid-sentence, the manager stops it. "Let him finish," she says. "It's small. It's everything." Months later, Evan attends a panel, not as the headline, but as a participant among many. He listens more than he speaks. When he does speak, it's measured. "We talk about justice like it's a moment," he says. "But it's a practice. You have to keep choosing it after the cameras leave." The applause is polite, appreciative. He lets it wash over him and pass. That night, Evan walks home alone. The city hums around him, indifferent and alive. He thinks about the intern he was. Careful, hopeful, quiet. He doesn't regret speaking. He regrets the cost. The sleep he lost. The friendships that thinned. The innocence that didn't survive. But he also knows this. Silence would have taken more. Evan stops at a crosswalk. The light changes. He steps forward. Behind him, the echo of that old room, of laughter that tried to shrink him, finally fades into something distant and manageable. Not gone, but no longer in control. And as Evan walks on, he understands the shape of what he carries now. Not a story to perform. A line he won't cross again. And the strength to keep it. Continue Chapter 9 but 900 word. Chapter 9, The Long Memory. 900 words. The email arrives on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, nearly a year after Evan leaves. He almost deletes it without opening it. The subject line is neutral, bureaucratic. Request for consultation, the kind of thing that once made his shoulders tense on instinct. He hesitates, then clicks. A firm. His old firm. They're rolling out a comprehensive cultural accountability framework, whatever that means this quarter. They want his feedback. Not a testimonial. Not a quote. Input. Quiet. Off the record. Evan leans back in his chair and stares at the ceiling. For a long moment, he considers ignoring it. He doesn't owe them anything. He gave them enough, his time, his trust, his calm. He paid in stress and sleep and the strange loneliness of being believed too late. But he also remembers Jamal's voice on the phone. "I want to testify." He remembers the intern emails. The small shifts that happened only because someone had gone first. So Evan replies, "I'll review the framework. I won't soften my feedback." The response comes within minutes. Understood. He smiles faintly at that. That evening, Evan meets Maya for dinner. They haven't seen each other in months, not properly. Life has pulled them in different directions, but the bond holds, the kind forged under pressure. "You look good," she says, studying him over her glass. "You say that every time," Evan replies. "And every time it's true," she says. "Oh, what's new?" He tells her about the email. Maya snorts. "Now they want wisdom. Now they want credibility," Evan says. "Borrowed. Are you going to give it to them?" "I think I already decided," he says. Maya nods. "You always do that. Decide before you admit it to yourself." Evan laughs. Occupational hazard. When the framework arrives, it's thick with language. Metrics. Committees. Escalation pathways. It looks impressive at first glance. He reads it slowly, carefully, like he once read contracts. He marks the gaps. The places where accountability dissolves into discretion. Where retaliation is named but not prevented. Where psychological safety is invoked without power ever being mentioned. He writes his feedback in the margins first. Then in a separate document. Clear. Direct. Unflinching. If raising concerns still costs employees social capital, this will fail. If leadership consequences are optional, this will fail. If tone remains a proxy for compliance, this will fail. He sends it back without apology. A week later they ask to meet. This time Evan chooses the room. Neutral ground. Glass walls. Daylight. No recorder placed without consent. The people across from him look different from the ones he remembers. Younger. More cautious. Less certain. "We appreciate your honesty," one of them says. "Honesty wasn't the problem before," Evan replies. "Listening was." They nod. One of them takes notes. "What would real change look like to you?" another asks. Evan thinks for a moment. "Consequences that don't depend on headlines. Protection that doesn't require courage to activate. And a culture where silence is treated as information, not neutrality." No one interrupts him. That's new. After the meeting, Evan walks outside and breathes deeply. He doesn't feel triumphant. He feels complete, as if a loop has finally closed. At his current job, the work is steady, the culture imperfect but responsive. When something goes wrong, people talk about it without whispering. One afternoon, a junior analyst knocks on his door. "Can I ask you something?" she says, nervous. "Of course." "How do you know when to push back?" she asks. "Without burning everything down." Evan smiles gently. "You don't always know. You decide what you can live with. Then you act like that line matters." She nods, absorbing it. That night, Evan writes in his notebook again. Not dates this time. Reflections. "The system doesn't forget," he writes. "Just waits for you to get tired." He closes the notebook. On the anniversary of the story breaking, another article runs. Not about him specifically. About the industry. About how many firms made promises and how few kept them. Evan's name appears once, near the end. A former intern who helped spark early scrutiny declined to comment. He reads the line twice. Feels no need to correct it. Silence, he's learned, can be chosen. That's what makes it different. Later, walking home, Evan passes an office building with familiar glass walls and two bright lights. For a split second, his chest tightens. Then it loosens. The memory is still there. The laugh. A room. The moment everything tilted. But it no longer owns him. The long memory of the system remains. Resistant, adaptive, slow. So does his. Evan keeps walking. Not toward justice as a destination, but toward it as a practice he now knows how to sustain. Years later, Evan still remembers the sound of that laugh. Not the volume of it. The shape. The way it slipped through the room and waited for permission to exist. The way silence gave it weight. But memory changes when you stop running from it. On a warm fall evening, Evan stands at the back of a small auditorium at a university campus. The room smells faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. Students fill the seats, some restless, some alert, some already tired in a way he recognizes. He wasn't supposed to speak tonight. He's here as a guest, a name on a panel about ethics in modern workplaces. He's older now, not hardened but steadier. His voice doesn't rush when he introduces himself. A student raises her hand. "What do you do?" she asks. "When the system tells you to be patient, but patience feels like permission." The room goes quiet. Evan takes a breath. He doesn't answer immediately. He's learned not to. "You listen to what patience is asking you to trade," he says finally. "If it's your dignity, it's too expensive." Some students nod. One writes that down. After the panel, a young man approaches him. Nervous. Overdressed. "I start my internship next summer," he says. "Same firm." "Or one like it." Evan studies his face. Sees himself years ago. A hope. The calculation. "Congratulations," Evan says. The student hesitates. "Do you think things are better now?" Evan considers the question honestly. Some things are. Some things learned how to hide. The student exhales, half laughing. "That's not comforting." Evan smiles gently. "It's useful." On the train ride home, Evan watches his reflection flicker in the dark window. He thinks about what he lost. Time, certainty, the illusion that good work alone keeps you safe. He thinks about what he gained, language boundaries, the ability to recognize when a room goes quiet for the wrong reasons. At work, Evan now manages a small team. He's careful with his authority, not timid, intentional. In meetings, he notices who hasn't spoken. He notices who gets interrupted. When someone laughs at a joke that lands wrong, he doesn't let it drift. "Pause," he says calmly. "What do you mean by that?" The room shifts, sometimes uncomfortably, always productively. One afternoon, HR asks him to review a complaint from a junior employee. Evan reads it slowly. There it is again. Coded language, brushed off concerns, the familiar urge to smooth things over. He writes back a single sentence. "Handle this as if the cost of getting it wrong matters." They do. At home, Evan keeps the old notebook on a shelf. He doesn't open it often. When he does, it's with distance, not dread. The pages remind him not of pain, but of clarity. He never hears from Mark again. Occasionally, Evan wonders what became of him. Whether he learned anything. Whether he blamed the world. Whether it even matters. Some endings don't belong to us. On the anniversary of his first day at the new firm, Evan receives a message from an unknown sender. "I was in that room," it reads. "I didn't say anything. I think about it all the time. I'm trying to do better now." Evan stares at the screen for a long moment. He types back, "So am I." That night, Evan walks through his neighborhood as the sun sets, painting the windows gold. People pass him without knowing his story, without asking for it. He likes it that way. He stops at a crosswalk. The signal changes. As he steps forward, Evan realizes something that once felt impossible. The moment that tried to define him, the joke, the silence, the threat wrapped in politeness, has shrunk. Not erased. Integrated. It's part of him now, like a scar that doesn't ache unless the weather changes. What remains isn't anger. It's precision. He knows the sound of injustice when it enters a room. He knows the cost of letting it stay. He knows that justice doesn't always arrive as punishment, but as memory, carried forward by people who refuse to forget. Evan crosses the street. The city hums around him, imperfect and alive. And somewhere, in rooms he'll never enter, silence is still being offered as an answer. But it no longer belongs to him. What remains is his voice. And the decision to keep using it. The training facility smelled like disinfectant and new paint, a place built for beginnings. Jamal arrived early as he always did, bag over his shoulder, leg taped, mind quiet. The court was empty except for a rebounder humming softly at one end. He dribbled once, twice, feeling the familiar conversation between floor and hand resume without ceremony. There were no guarantees here. The coach said it plainly during orientation. "We measure effort. We measure impact. We measure health. You speak up, we listen." Jamal nodded, absorbing the words without clinging to them. Promises were lighter than actions. He watched how the staff moved, how questions were answered, how silence was handled. He learned again. The first scrimmage came fast. Jamal played 12 minutes. He set screens cut hard past early. When he felt the tug in his leg, he raised a hand. "Play stop." A trainer asked a question. Jamal answered. He sat. No sighs. No looks. The absence of resistance felt like a gift he didn't unwrap too quickly. Afterward, he sat alone on the baseline, towel over his shoulders. A teammate dropped beside him. "You good?" the teammate asked. Jamal smiled. "Yeah." He meant it. That night, Jamal called his mother. "It's different," he said. She laughed softly. "Different can be scary." Jamal looked at the city lights through the window. "Different can be fair." They sat in the quiet together, letting the words settle. Weeks passed. Jamal earned more minutes. Not because of noise. Because of fit, real fit measured and explained. When he struggled, he was told why. When he succeeded, it was acknowledged without caveats. The scoreboard did its work, but it wasn't alone anymore. Conversations followed. One afternoon, Jamal received an email forwarded by Brooks. A policy update from the university he'd left. Clearer reporting lines, independent oversight, mandatory rest protocols. It wasn't a confession. It was a correction. Jamal closed the email and breathed. Change didn't announce itself with apologies. Sometimes it just moved furniture around until the room worked better. At a community center across town, Jamal volunteered on off days. He helped kids with footwork and patience. He taught them to listen to their bodies, to trust their instincts, to write things down when something felt wrong. A boy lingered after practice. "Coach says I'm too much," the boy said, eyes low. Jamal knelt to his level. "Too much of what?" The boy shrugged. Jamal smiled gently. "Let's find out together." The season edged forward. Jamal's name appeared on a depth chart, then stayed. He didn't chase the moment. He maintained it. When reporters asked about his past, he answered briefly. "I learned how to stand still," he said, "and how to move when it mattered." He refused the neat arc they wanted. Life wasn't a highlight reel. One night, after a close win, Jamal walked back to his apartment under a sky washed clean by rain. He felt tired in a good way. He thought about the bench that taught him to listen, the hearing that taught him to speak, the quiet after that taught him to choose. None of it had been free. All of it had been necessary. He sat at his small kitchen table and opened a notebook. Not for evidence. For himself. He wrote a list, not of grievances but of practices. Ask questions early. Document without paranoia. Rest without guilt. Praise publicly. Correct privately. Leave rooms better than you found them. A message arrived from Marcus. "Saw your game. Proud of you." Jamal typed back, "Keep playing honest." Another message followed, from the freshman he'd once advised. "I reported it." They listened. Jamal closed his eyes, feeling something steady take root. On a late broadcast, a commentator mentioned Jamal in passing, a player known for his efficiency and composure. No mention of controversy. Jamal smiled. Being known for the work felt right. Before bed, Jamal stepped onto his balcony. The city hummed below, indifferent and alive. He understood now that justice wasn't a finish line. It was a habit. It required attention when the lights dimmed and the crowd went home. He went inside and turned off the lamp, leaving the room in a soft, workable dark. Tomorrow would bring another practice, another choice. Jamal welcomed it. What remained wasn't applause or outrage. It was a clearer path and the resolve to keep it clear, for himself and for whoever came next.